Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Feeling out of control is one of the worst feelings that I have ever had. I hate feeling out of control, and a lot of my friends in recovery feel the same way. A lot of us might say we thrive on chaos, but a lot of times that chaos, when it's really a feeling of being out of control, is what drives us to the edge. And certainly for me, feeling out of control, feeling like I had no grasp on what was happening in my life, is part of the feeling that led to the desperation, the depression, and the ultimate crisis that brought me into recovery and that led me to going to residential treatment, where I started to not get control over my life, but learn how to accept the things that I can control in life. Big difference there. So this was discussed a little bit in the section I read of Fuck Feelings this morning by Dr. Michael Bennett and Sarah Bennett. And I want to read a little bit from the book and then talk about my experience with gaining control in recovery, and really not gaining control, but learning what is possible to control. So they say, since humans control very little besides their DVR cues and their opinions about Miley Cyrus, it's not surprising that we often feel like our lives are slipping into chaos. Sometimes it's because you're actually losing control, sometimes because someone close to you is spinning out, and sometimes because whatever you don't control feels far more important and overwhelming than what you do. In any case, the goals you wish for when you're feeling out of control, as listed and described in the following three examples, are rarely realistic and will often make your helplessness worse. And this was one of my big issues, is that I had all sorts of goals and all sorts of things that I thought should be happening in my life that were actually out of my control. I had a very stressful period at work where I was being asked to work long hours. And it wasn't just me, it was along with everybody else at the office. And I felt like, I should have some sort of control over that. And I kept trying to exert control over that without being realistic about the fact that this was just the way things were at that moment in life. And the best thing that I could have done is accept that and then figure out, okay, in light of this issue, in light of the fact that my office is pulling 60 to 70 hour weeks to try to get this client deliverable met, what can I adjust in other areas of my life to try to help ease the discomfort that comes along with that? So that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is when we get in these situations where we're starting to feel out of control, refocus on, well, what can I control? And sometimes it's going to be things outside of the thing that's causing us discomfort in the first place. But what we have to understand is that our attempt to exert control over the things that cause us discomfort often creates even more discomfort because we don't truly have control over those things. All we have control over is the way we react to the world around us. That's it. Sometimes I don't even have control over my own emotions. And so it's very important for us to realize the limited control that we have in our lives and then work on how we exert that control. So later in the book, they say, in any case, just because you feel out of control doesn't mean you should have been able to prevent it. Instead of searching for mistakes or weaknesses, Judge yourself realistically in terms of what a good person can actually do in a bad situation. Even if your situation is due to a foolish mistake, learn from it and stop blaming yourself for bad results you don't control, whether they involve your job, kids, or mental condition. If you do blame yourself for the mess you're in, simply because it happened on your watch, you'll weaken and distract yourself at a time you need to be stronger. If you dwell on second guessing yourself and believing you deserve punishment, you'll have more trouble figuring out the smart thing to do, giving strength to others, and tolerating painful feelings without panicking. So I find that really, really important because for my entire life, I have had this belief that somehow I deserved punishment for every wrong thing that I've done. And I used to use guilt and shame to punish myself for the things that I've done. You know, my mom will say, well, we didn't have to punish you much as parents because you punished yourself. And that's very true. And that extended up into my adulthood. And I would use guilt and shame as a way to punish myself. Doing so prevented me from learning from a lot of experiences in life. Instead of accepting that sometimes people do things that they'd rather not have done, and thinking about what I could do different the next time something similar comes up, I would dwell on things and obsess about things and feel guilt and shame to the point of physical illness. And that was a very, very tough thing to go through, on top of the fact that it didn't really help me learn much about any situation I was experiencing. So it's very important that we realize that when we're in a situation where we've done something that we're not really happy with, if we've screwed up, in a situation where common situation for recovering addicts and alcoholics, relapse. Relapse is an opportunity. If it happens, it's an opportunity to learn and to get better. You take a look at the people that I've seen come out of relapses stronger are the people who have gone, okay, I got to stop. I got to look at what was I doing that was not working. What was I doing? A lot of times the answer is right there in front of them. They stopped working whatever program they were working, or they lost touch with the people that were in their were in their recovery community, or they started hanging around with people from their old crowd. They started getting into old habits. So that's an opportunity to do, and that's why there's relapse autopsies where you go through with a professional and look at what should I have been doing differently. That's what you want to do in those situations. The people who don't get out of those situations very well are those who beat themselves up and feel an extreme amount of emotional pain and shame and guilt over what they feel, to the point that they can't figure out what they should be doing differently. Feelings of guilt and shame, they have a purpose, but they have a limited purpose. The best feelings are feelings of, how do I fix what went wrong this last time? And then a drive, self-respect, and a drive to do those things as you identify them. So it's really important to recognize what's within your control, what you can control, and most often we have extremely little control over the world around us. Our control is typically limited to our reaction to that world, and even then, we have some limits. We're only humans, and we've got to give ourselves credit for what we can do and stop beating ourselves up for the things that we can't. That's it for today. I'll be back here tomorrow with more. In the meantime, have a good one.